Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the MSNS podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Lim.
And I'm your other co-host, Alan. And today we have Catherine Nguyen as our guest.
Yes,
Catherine,
yes.
could you introduce yourself for us?
Sure. Hi, my name is Catherine. I'm a sophomore one, and I am the current MSNS secretary for this year.
Yes, welcome. We wanted to bring Catherine on because we found it interesting that, this is one of the first, I think this is the first time that there is a female in the core four of the board of MSNS, meaning the secretary, treasurer, vice president, and president, who manages the overall operations of MSNS. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that, how you first came about joining MSNS, your thoughts about joining the Male Student Nursing Society, and what led you to kind of joining the board afterwards.
Sure. So freshman year, there was the fall involvement fair, of course, and as a nursing student, as a young nursing student, you kind of just want to hit up all the nursing organizations first that were introduced during orientation. So I heard about MSNS and NSA specifically, and I signed up for both during the fall involvement fair, which was really cool. And then later on, probably in September, NSA and MSNS were both doing their cohort rep applications. And I was really interested in that because I personally am not a very outgoing person. So I thought, okay, this is college. I should try to do something to get myself out there. Just make friends, make connections from this new place. So I thought applying to be the cohort rep was a really good idea. So I decided to apply for the MSNS cohort rep, and thankfully I got it. I was super happy when Shane told me. Well, I think Nate told me in an email, but Shane told me later on when we went to one of these social events. That was really cool. And what was the second part of the question?
Well, before we get to that second part of the question, I just wanted to ask you what made you kind of take that chance or to join MSNS, because I know of a lot of people that when they went to the fall involvement fair and they saw the banner saying Male Student Nursing Society, a lot of them just walked right across because whether they didn't want to be in the club because they thought it was only for males, or they just didn't want to intrude on something that they thought was just a male only thing. And you saying that you were somewhat of a shy person, what was that thought process behind joining something like that?
Oh yeah, so I mentioned earlier that MSNS and all the nursing organizations were introduced to me during orientation with Stacy. So I think it was Nick that did the orientation for us. Nick Benaria, our vice president last year. So he was really good at saying and emphasizing that MSNS wasn't only for males. That was just the title in the beginning to have a place for male nurses, because as you guys know that nursing as a profession is predominantly by women. So that's why MSNS was created in the beginning, of course. But then Nick really emphasized that MSNS wasn't only for males, it was open to all genders. And it was just, our goal was to balance male and female in the nursing profession. And I thought that was really cool. So that's what interested me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is that one of the things that made you, because what I was hearing you talk about was that you were also thinking about doing NSA, right? So I just wanted to ask you, what was that one thing that made you choose MSNS over NSA?
I don't think she chose.
I didn't choose one over the other. I did both.
You did both? Okay.
I am also the membership chair for NSA.
Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, because in my experience, right, I just didn't like NSA like that. I tried it before, and I was just wondering, just let me rephrase the question then. what made you want to do both? You know what I'm saying?
So I'm pretty sure, as every nursing major at our school knows, NSA and MSNS are very different, but like our e-boys just click together like very well, as you can see between all our chats and stuff. But I decided to do both because for MSNS, I was very attracted to the laid back, very chill atmosphere that we had, which was very different from NSA, which was more like serious things. Like, yes, we both do like community service opportunities and things like that, but just as a comparison, like the cohort rep application for NSA and MSNS were totally different last year. Like NSA was significantly longer, and there was like multiple processes that you had to go through in order to even like be what is that word I'm looking for? Considered, right? For MSNS, it was very straightforward application, and you would get the results within a week. So I was attracted to the professional aspect for NSA like that, and then I was also very attracted to the laid back, chill atmosphere that MSNS had last year because I was a freshman. I really just wanted to have a place to relax and also get to know people, but I also really wanted to develop professionally as a nurse.
Awesome.
And also, sorry, it's just like later on, MSNS had the workshops that Joy organized. I thought that was a really cool opportunity to develop professionally.
Yeah, I feel like that's something MSNS is trying to do more of, because we are obviously and definitely known for being chill and laid back and like, you know, the clowns that we are. But I feel like, you know, we want to make sure that that's not just all we're known for. And I think the e-board right now is doing a good job of that making sure that we have that good balance of, you know, personal development, you know, respite and all that versus like the professional stuff. We want to make sure that we're also emphasizing that and making sure that our members are here not only to just chill and relax, but also to like grow and develop academically, personally, and professionally.
Yeah, that's something we're really trying to develop this year for our e-board, as you can see through like the multiple workshops we're trying to organize despite COVID.
Yeah, but honestly, good on you for like putting so much on your plate and, you know, doing both e-board for NSA and I remember like, this is a funny story. Well, it's actually super short, but it was just I remember right after the elections, I was talking with Michael and RJ, and I think they were like panicking a little bit because Catherine was elected for the membership for NSA, and like they were super scared that she was just gonna leave MSNS for NSA altogether. Like they were just panicking, like, oh no, like we need her as the secretary, we need her so bad. And but I think like they texted Christine too, which was the president of NSA, and they're like, did you just poach Catherine from MSNS? I think it was just super funny to hear that, and it was like super cool to hear that like, oh, there is someone out there that like is a really good fit for secretary. Obviously, if Michael and RJ want you that bad. Yeah, that was super fun.
Funny story, literally right after election results were out, they texted me. They were like, Catherine, are you leaving MSNS? Like, we were so worried. And then I was like, no, I'm doing both. And then it was just like kind of like tug of war. It's like prioritize which club more. And I was like, you know, I try to find a balance this year. Most definitely, being on both e-boards has definitely been a challenge. There's a lot of organization that you have to go through, especially with being a sophomore one, adjusting to a sophomore one, which is when you first have your actual like clinical experience and like actual nursing classes. So that was a lot to adjust to for me. But thankfully, I had Michael, RJ, and Leo behind me all the time. Like they literally helped me so much to adjust and like just, you know, like fitting in, sliding into sophomore one with both of my responsibilities. So that was really nice.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that, you know, your first clinical experience was during a pandemic, because I feel like it does change things, whether you were able to go to clinical or not. You know, I know that what you guys had to go through this semester is completely different from what Al and I had the opportunity to do for our sophomore one. Can I explain a little bit about like what was your experience this semester?
Yeah, sure. So, in the beginning, I wasn't sure whether we were going to have in-person clinical because, you know, we don't really know until later on. We weren't informed until later on. So I was kind of like panicking. I didn't know whether to get an apartment SF or to stay back at home because I didn't know if we are going to have in-person clinical, or even if we didn't have in-person clinical, I didn't know if we were mandated to go to school. You know, to go to sim lab, but sim lab wasn't, skills lab wasn't opened either. So I was lucky enough to get in-person clinical a month and a half, 2 months into school.
Wow.
And it was very abrupt. It was just like one day my clinical instructor over Zoom was like, guys, we were chosen to have clinical, in-person clinical. And then people that weren't in SF or like close to SF were like, but
That's rough. Oh my.
Yeah.
and she told us 1 week before, and then she also said, before you enter the premises, you have to get COVID tested. And getting COVID testing was a scramble. It was like a scramble for a lot of people in my block. It was like literally reload the page every second until you get an appointment. So that was big. But then eventually, you know, going to clinical every other week was really nice. I got to learn a lot of things hands on, and for the skills that like you can't teach over Zoom, like injections. I was really happy that my clinical instructor was able to show us like in person, and we actually got to touch needles and stuff like that. And I also heard someone actually got to give an injection on her last day.
Cool.
What?
Yeah, I think she gave what was it, a heparin injection maybe, or intramuscular injection on her very last day of clinical. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah.
Oh my god, like I don't know, I don't know if you can tell by expression, but like even though injections is like the big thing for sophomore one, like I don't think anybody in my vlog got to do injection like for sophomore one. I don't know about you, Alan. Did anybody get to do one for you?
And in all honesty, we got to like prep an injection, at least for me. So we would try to take turns and pass on like the torch for the next person to do injections.
Oh, nice.
And for me, I just wanted everyone else to have a chance to do it because I know for at least for myself, I'll have a chance in the future to do it. So I mostly just did med prep for other people in my cohort and my group last semester or two last year now. Oh, crazy. Yeah.
It's I don't know about you guys, but like I got to do my first injection sophomore two. I think it was my first day of clinical in med surg, and I think both the CI, all the nurses knew that we were sophomore two and that we've already had a semester of clinical experience. So I think they were all expecting that we knew everything, or like they thought we had our shit together. So like, hey Ryan, can you like go give like a quick injection over there, like to this patient? And I was just like out loud, I was like, oh yeah, sure, I got you. But then in my mind, I was like, oh my god, this is not today, please not today. But then it was super nice because my CI is like super understanding and chill, so she was able to like review the steps with me, the proper dosages and stuff. Because the whole time, I don't even know if I was like listening because I was just so worried. And like when I did it, I could tell that my hand was shaking super bad, and it was I don't know. It's always like the first time that you do some sort of medical procedure. It's like the hands are super shaky. Everything's just scary. I don't know if you guys had the same experience, but that was definitely mine. But I think as you do more and more, obviously you get more confident. You worry a lot less because you're a lot more informed and educated about the whole process. And yeah, because I think my fear was that because I hadn't looked at the skill stack and practice all throughout winter break or summer or whatever it was. Like there was just this huge gap in time where I was out of practice and suddenly they just expect me to do, inject a needle into a person. It just felt very scary at the time.
Yeah, most definitely. Speaking of scary experiences on first day at my clinical site, I was told to give a bed bath to a patient.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the heck? I am not prepared for this.
Yeah.
And then, you know how you're supposed to have like, you're supposed to have supervision, right? Because you're not essentially like checked off. Like my group and I were just told, all right, give the patient a bed bath. And the person walked away and we were like, just looking at the patient, like, we are not qualified to do this alone yet. So then we had to go hunt down our clinical instructor, and then she helped us do the bed bath. And I'm forever grateful to my first patient. Like just props to all of our first patients. Like they deal with so much from us.
Yeah, it's funny to realize how understanding patients are of the nursing students. Like whenever I went into a situation like a brand new situation, I always expected, the patients to always be so vigilant about, the care that we receive, which is, their right. But hearing from them, knowing that, hey, we're nursing students, like it's okay if you're nervous or anxious. Like I acknowledge it when I go in. They acknowledge it as well. They're like, hey, you seem a little anxious, because like I don't know if you can tell, but like when I get into new situations, I'm very, very angsty, and I think the patients sensed that, and they were able to acknowledge it. I was able to acknowledge it. And it was just super nice that we were like on the same page, and they were just so understanding about how slow I was, especially my first medication administration. I was very, very slow, like incompetently slow, but then they were just able to, sit there, watch TV, relax, and understand like, hey, I think every nursing student has to go through this to become a nurse. So, make your mistakes now or be slow now so that you can practice and work towards being that efficient nurse that you will be in the future. So I was like, thank you. I respect that.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the big things that you can take away from sophomore one nursing is that it's your actual first experience into professional nursing. You're actually going out of your way and taking care of patients as you would if you were to be an RN, right? So having the ability to go in with confidence I think is one of the biggest things you could do for not just yourself, but also for your patients, because it actually just creates a better work environment for both of you guys, because you can sense the anxiety from your patient. And if you're going to transfer that anxiety in like to yourself, right, they're not going to respond to anything you do in a positive way, if that makes sense. Yeah, because the first time I went into a patient's room to do a bed bath or something, like Catherine was saying, I was so nervous. Like at least for us, we got to do, we had our checkoffs and everything for that, but just going in there, not by myself, but with another classmate, we were just looking at each other like, this is it. This is what we're doing. And we just had to like muster all that confidence and really go in there and just take care of a patient as the best we could.
Yeah. And I feel like one thing that I've kind of used throughout my clinical experience is the saying like fake it till you make it in terms of confidence. Obviously you can't do that in all, things in life, fake it till you make it. But I think in terms of confidence, I think it really did help me that like when I absolutely did not have the confidence freshman or sophomore year to, to interact with patients and do my medical procedures because I was super, super anxious and scared. But I think I guess faking that confidence, pretending that I actually, I don't know how to phrase this, but pretending that I don't want to say pretending that I knew what I was doing, because I felt like I was practicing enough where I did know what I was doing, but just convincing myself that I was confident enough, I was competent enough to do this procedure actually made me confident in a way. Like because I was, scared starting out, I think it was just really nice. It was really good of me to just keep convincing myself, you got this, you got this, you got this. And eventually, after you start faking it till you make it, one day you will make it. And I think now, because I've like convinced myself so much, I think,
for sure.
Moving forward, I have been a lot more confident in my medical procedures and just interacting with patients moving forward.
Yeah, Catherine, I just want to ask you to speak a little bit more about your personal feelings. Just having your first clinical during a pandemic, like what were some of your expectations going in, and like what did you take from it?
So actually the first day, it was such a mess. First day clinical, the facility I was going to didn't even know that we were going to be there. So you have like you have like 8 nursing students in white scrub just standing in front of the facility, not knowing what to do because they wouldn't let you in. And then of course my CI came and then she sorted all of that out. And then I knew for sure that we weren't going to get clinical every single week. So it was kind of like just make the most of what you got. And like as I said, the first day clinical, I had to give a full bed bath, which was really scary. But I was really thankful for the experience because I got to actually do something first day clinical instead of just like, you know, having those down days where you just walk around the clinical because there's nothing for you to do. And so like, you know, the subsequent clinical rotations, we kind of just like did the most we could. Like we worked with the CNAs in the beginning. And then progressively we went to shadow the nurses during like med prep, and like we had a lot of fun doing like taking blood pressure. Like blood pressure, doing it over Zoom was not the move.
Oh yeah, it's not.
Doing manual blood pressure over Zoom is not the move because one, you don't even know if you're correct. Two, sometimes you don't even have a real life patient with a heartbeat or, you know, pulse. So it's like really confusing. And then, so we actually got to practice a lot with those patients and on each other in person. And a lot of the patients were just like very welcoming. It was like, I don't know how many teacher patients I've met, but they're all just like, we need, like, they understood like we're nursing students, and they were like, I think it's the teacherness inside of them. They were just like, yes, come in, you can do whatever you want on me, you know, to help you become a better nurse in the future. So I had a lot of those positive experiences at my facility, and it was just really fun, like being able to practice all of my skills on them. That, like, you know, like, because you guys had in person like every single week, right? So it was like you learn a whole bunch of skills over Zoom and through videos from what is it, Lippincott? Mm-hmm. And then you kind of just like practice all of them in bulk on one patient at a clinical site.
Yeah. This was your geriatrics rotations, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like going into a patient's room because the patients were a little bit older, like they were okay with you coming in?
You know, like we always like make sure that like they're okay with it. Some patients don't let us in. Right. So like for that, it's just like bummer, but like you have to remain respectful because it's their right to privacy, of course. But for me, I've always had patients that were always just like, come in. And they were all just like, even if they didn't want to do it, like you could tell they were just like, I don't really want to do it, but you're a nursing student. I know that during this pandemic, you don't really have time to practice skills on somebody. So even if they like, they feel like, they kind of just like, all right, come in, you know, which was, I thought was really funny because it's just like, they took a second, like, do I want to? Do I not? And then like, because we were there, they kind of just like let us do it. And I thought
that's
that was
awesome.
really cool.
Yeah, I think it's also very cool that you still were able to get a good experience out of nursing school, out of your clinical rotations, even during a really weird time, like as of right now, you know? And this is really cool because for me, I really enjoyed my geriatrics rotation. I learned a lot of my nursing skills through that, which transferred over into my med surg, which transferred over into just other aspects of my life, just not just nursing school, but also for work. Because in geriatrics, communications especially communication with the patient is super important, at least in my opinion, because you're working with a population that's getting a little bit bigger, and they vary from a bunch of ages. At least for me, I'd say like late 40s all the way to like early 90s. So each patient, depending on their age and depending on their mood, you have to adjust your nursing talk just a little bit so you can comply to what they need at the moment. And I think that's really crucial.
Yeah. And one question I have for both of you guys is like, when you went through that experience in sophomore one, whether you were you got to see their charts, you got to see their psychosocial history, their list of diseases, and when you were assessing the patients, like, how did that feel for you guys? Like, being one of the first instances where you were taking care of someone with all these, diseases, potentially on hospice, and because I think going into high school, everything about nursing or medical care, it kind of gets romanticized. You kind of see this fast, action-paced, hospital inpatient setting where you're just constantly focusing on these medical procedures, focusing on these catheters, all the IVs, all this and that. But then when you go into the geriatric setting and see that's a little bit more slow, you get a little bit more time to talk to these patients. How did that make you guys feel?
I'm gonna play the Uno reverse card on you, Ryan. I want you to talk first about it. So.
Okay. I think it was for me, I think it was weird because it just hit me so hard. Like, it just all of a sudden felt so real. Because before that, I didn't have any like experience with patients at all. That was like my first time in a very long time being in a hospital or any outpatient or inpatient setting. And at first, I think I was just like going through the motions. I was just super nervous. So I was kind of numb to it. But I think as I got, more immersed in the clinical experience for sophomore one, I don't know how, I think I got a little bit emotional towards the end, because you always try to be empathetic, right? You start to put your, self in the other person's shoes. So when I'm imagining, being in their situation, having their, diseases, disorders, seeing their charts, their psychosocial history, and seeing what they've been through, like, it does make me a little bit emotional, knowing like, wow, like, I'm very lucky to be in the position I am, because some people don't have that chance, especially now during COVID, because, I have my support system, but sometimes when you're in those settings, there are policies and procedures that prevent your support system from even visiting you. So, like, I find it, very terrible that sometimes they're super isolated and going through all this alone. Yeah. But yeah, like, and, I think I still have that. I think it's a good thing to always be empathetic and emotional, but I do somewhat feel like I've been a little desensitized already, sadly. Like, even though I still am empathetic, trying to be compassionate, I do kind of have to make sure I set that side out a little bit so that I can focus on, giving the best care to the patient and not being biased in any way.
How about you, Catherine? How'd you feel about it?
For me, I've only looked at a patient chart once, because that's just how the schedule was for my block.
Yeah.
And when we looked at the patient chart, it was towards the end of clinical. So it was kind of like, all right, we have our, mandatory patient data sheet that our school gives us. And then it was kind of just like a mad rush to like flip through the patient chart, because at my facility, they don't have electronic record. It's a thick binder where it's all paper format. So my clinical instructor, she gathered all of us before, and she was like, okay, this is the section that you find this information, then so and so and so. And so we were all assigned a patient, and we were given their patient chart, and it was a mad rush to like, I think it was like maybe 45 to an hour that you had to find all the necessary information and like write down everything. And like, some people in my clinical block had many diseases, or like they had many medications. Like I think one of my friends' patient had like 17 conditions and 17 medications that they had to take. And so it was like I cannot write down all of this. So that's what was going through my mind when I saw my first patient data sheet chart, sorry. But I was just like looking through the conditions and I was like, wow, this is a lot of conditions, right? That you have to live with as you age. And I just like looking through some of it and I was like, that must hurt so much. Like you're literally in pain all the time. And like, you know, some medications is like, you know, like Q6, you know, right? So it's like, they're like time lapse where you like, it wears off before you get your next dose of pain meds. And so I thought it was just like, wow, these people are like so strong to be able to keep going. I thought, you know, like, yeah, that's basically all I thought. I was like, these people are really tenacious to still keep fighting despite all these multiple conditions that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just going back to looking at charts and like dealing with hospice and everything, I think the hardest thing for any nursing student is probably experiences with death and dying. I think that's the hardest one because most of the patients that at least I had during my time in geriatrics during sophomore one were that a lot of them were DNR. So what DNR stands for is do not resuscitate. So if they were to happen to go into a cardiac arrest, then the nurses and everyone would just let them die naturally that way. And because patients have the autonomy to really choose what they want to do for their lives, it's just that they understand that it's almost about their time to go, and they'd rather just go and not be saved and deal with all the heartache after. Because especially at an older age, you start to understand that if you do get resuscitated, you might have injuries to your ribs because you know when people do CPR, they can break your ribs, right? And it'll be hard for them to recover from that. And you don't know any of the other conditions they might have in the future. So for me, at least, I think that was the hardest to get over, just to understand that like a lot of these patients are just waiting to pass. And being the nurses there, being the nurses students there, having the ability to communicate with them and be the person that they can rely on just always gave me a good feeling in my heart. And that's like one of the biggest things I can take away from my geriatrics rotations. That's why I'm just so passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I actually really like geriatric nursing because I think our older population do deserve more than they get. They just get like they get so much shit, man. They get absolutely so much shit just because they can be taken advantage of, and I don't like that. Yeah. And just talking about charts, binder charts, they suck ass, man.
Yeah, 100%,
they suck ass, man.
It's no.
Let me tell you about that because doing my first patient data sheet, oh my goodness, that shit was so hard because I didn't understand where anything was, you know, and like understanding you guys are doing it during a pandemic. Man, that must suck even more, man. I'm so sorry that you guys have to go through all of that during a pandemic because even without a pandemic, that shit was hot ass, okay?
I just have to say, regarding how, yes, it was extremely hard. And, you know, being a freshman, you know, typical freshman, you leave it to the last 2 to 3 days before they're due, right?
Yes. That's how nurses do it, right?
Let's go.
Yeah, that's how we do it. And so I was like my clinical instructor was like, just do the best you can, right? But she was still expecting a full patient data sheet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then I was just like, Professor, I don't know how to do half of these things. But okay. So that's when it comes in, like, where we, you know, sophomore one, you had to pay for Lippincott, right?
Very
So
expensive.
Yep.
Yes.
very expensive, but it was like, I must say, it's the thing that saved all of us sophomore ones this year, because it was literally just like breeze through, cut paste, whatever you needed.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know?
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's super
agreed.
helpful. Like once you
Yeah.
understand how to like find everything, it's actually really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm. So that was a lifesaver, and also like that's when, you know, your connections come in to upperclassmen who've already done patient care sheets before, where you just ask them like, what does this mean? Like, I legit texted RJ, Michael, Leo, and what does this mean? The patient's numbers are this. What does this mean?
Mhm.
All right, because you had to, you know, in I think it's part 3 of the patient data sheet, it was like interpretation of abnormal lab values. I was like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know what it means, because at that point in fundamentals, I only learned as expected in a healthy normal adult,
Mhm.
Yeah,
True.
for sure.
right? So I didn't know what her values meant, and I was like, I don't know what to put. So then Leo was just like, what's this value? What's this value? And then it was just kind of like, all right, she could have this condition, or she could have this condition, or even maybe this condition. And then RJ was like, oh yeah, she could have that condition too. And I was like, so what do I put?
All of the above.
All of the above. Honestly.
So first patient data sheet was really fun, you know, just like talking to upperclassmen, like, what does this mean? And they're all just like, oh, you baby.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I used to ask like Brian or like Shane, like a lot of things. Toby, all. Oh my god, it was crazy how many things. I'm sure they were annoyed at some point at like how many, but I think it was just so nice of them. Like there was so much love there that they were able to take time out of their obviously busy schedule to just help us out, because I think that is something that's super big in nursing culture and in especially in the MSNS community, is like helping the people, you know,
Yeah.
the next generation. And I love that because I think that's much needed, because all of us kind of know what you're going through right now, Catherine, in some sense. Of course we didn't have the pandemic, but like I think just knowing what we had to go through during that time, we want to make sure that you guys are taken care of and that you guys have like the best information, strategies, and tips possible so that you can succeed where we had to fail the first time in order to like succeed.
I think that's another thing that really attracted me to MSNS. Like, everyone was like so open and like so like legit, like just ask me whatever you need and I'll answer. Like, just text me whatever. I remember freshman year, I was doing a homework assignment for like micro lab. I didn't know how to answer this question. I literally took a picture of it. I sent it to my mentor. I was like, how do you answer this? My mentor was like, I think it's like this. And then she sent me a response and I was like, thank you so much. It was just like so out of the blue. It was like 10 p.m. and she was just there like, and then she just responded and I was like, wow, you really do. Like, anytime.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the most important aspects of that mentor-mentee relationship. And I guess like the same thing as like a nursing and patient relationship, where the person who is experienced, they should always try to make themselves available in one way or another, whether it's through text, email, call, whatever. I think that's something that I find interesting. Like when you guys were talking about that, like it reminded me of like the nursing student relationship and like the nurse, because sometimes there are amazing nurses that inspire all of us, right? They have great patient care, but sometimes we have some grumpy nurses that don't want nursing students at all, that, you know, they're always just focused, whether it's just on the money or just doing their job and just clocking out. It makes me wonder like why, because they were in the exact same position that we were, you know. They were also nursing students going through this difficult time, and then now all of a sudden when they've, you know, grown up, and I guess, you know, obviously they've might have seen some stuff, they might have burned out, but it's just hard to kind of see, you know, them being less compassionate towards the nursing students who were, you know, once what they were.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna add on to that a little bit, just to be really real, because at least I think all of us know that, you know, nursing does provide you a lot, like monetarily wise. No, you'll be okay. You'll be living comfortably, and a lot of people do come in thinking that that's why they're in, and they don't really think about or really try to be more human about it, especially in nursing, where you really need to be more compassionate and be more empathetic to excel in this workforce. And it's just really hard to see that sometimes, just seeing grumpy nurses, or like nurses that are obviously there just for the money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different for the other nurses that obviously have been seasoned, you know, and they've been there for a while, and they seem like they're gonna burn out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot different, because a lot for them at least, I feel like they're willing to still teach, but a lot of times in their nursing practice, you see that they could be a lot better than they could. So I think in previous podcasts, we talked about burnout and everything like that. And it's one of the most important things, like just to take a look at, not just as a nursing student, because as a nurse, you'll also have to deal with that. And yeah, just going through finals and everything, and having school over the pandemic, burnout is real, man. Oh my goodness. Like, over just doing schoolwork, dealing with all this stress all the time about just not knowing what's going to happen next, all this uncertainty, it just really takes a toll on your mental. And just finding ways to get rid of that burnout is super helpful, and it will transfer over into your nursing career for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I personally do have a fear that I will become like those grumpy nurses would. And not the grumpy nurse, but just like the burnt out nurses that may be less compassionate or less willing to teach. I am super scared of that, because right now I'm like the complete opposite. Like, I'm super passionate. I want to be in there caring for the patients, not just doing the medical procedures, but actually like doing a holistic approach. But I am scared because I don't know what's going to happen to me or what's going to happen to the patients in the future, where I might change, because we never know who we're going to be, really. Because I know, looking back from me, between me and like me as a high schooler to me as like a college student, I've changed a lot for better and for worse. But and I am scared that will happen in the future as well. I don't know if you guys have the same fear. You guys have the same fear? I don't know.
I've never thought about it, because maybe it's because I'm so new, you know, like I've just had my first clinical experience. It's, for me, I'm still like very novel about everything. Like, everything is a novelty to me. I kind of like, even when I just got to see like a wound dressing or like feeding a patient, I got so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. So I haven't ever thought of, like, that thought hasn't ever occurred to me, where it's like, I'll become a grumpy nurse, as you put it, and as I learned the fundamentals. So I haven't actually really thought about it.
Yeah, I only asked because I don't know, because from my experience, I always, I don't know if this is a bad assumption, but I always assume that when we, like, everybody who starts off in nursing school is like somewhat energetic about, you know, the cause, the message behind nursing. But I do see a lot of nurses in the inpatient, outpatient setting. And when I was doing some EMT work for RockMed, I saw a lot of the seasoned EMTs and a lot of nurses, doctors that were working there that, you know, although, you know, they were, you know, kind, there were like a select few that you could tell just didn't want to be there, that like didn't want to do anything with the patients. They just wanted to get in and get out. And I just thought that was like, it was very sad, because like, I think, you know, once upon a time, they were in the same position as us, like super passionate, super willing to do anything for the patients. But somewhere along the line, that changed, you know? And I'm just, yeah, I don't know how to feel about that for even my future, for like the future of all nursing students.
I think the best way for me, at least, when I see that, I'll be like, oh, they're just having a bad day. They're not always like this.
That's true. Try to
I
give
think
them the
that,
benefit of the doubt, huh?
yeah, just give them the benefit of the doubt, because sometimes I know, like, if I have a really shitty day, I obviously will not have the same amount of compassion for my patients as I usually would. And just having that ability to turn your nursing brain on and off is really hard too. Sometimes you're just too tired to do it, and I totally understand. And it's just a skill that takes a lot of energy out of you. And at the end of the day, it's hard to be hard to be in your own emotions after giving so much.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like one of the bad things about nursing is like you're always giving, and sometimes when you want to receive something, it's especially hard, because you don't know where to get that from, and you're not getting the same return, and it sucks, man. So I think at least for us in nursing, just keeping that in mind, just being emotionally available, and also be okay with receiving emotions will take you a long way.
Yeah. And I think I talked this like very, very early on the podcast, like when I was with Toby, but a lot of my friends and nurses, even nurses that I've talked to, it's very difficult for them, like how Alan was saying, like you're giving so much that, it's hard to find ways to just like take in. And for them, a lot of times they can't differentiate between self-care versus being selfish. Because I feel like all of us in one shape or form, like let's say, you just had like a hard clinical, you're super tired and you just want to do nothing, but then all of a sudden your family, your friends kind of ask you like, hey, you want to go out? We miss you. We haven't seen you in so long. We want to like, can you come out with us? And I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. I'm so tired. And then sometimes you're worried because you feel like, hey, because like, this is my time for self-care because I really, really need it. But at the same time, like, oh, am I being selfish for taking the time for myself and not being with my family and friends? I think a lot of people have had those experiences before. And I think it's super hard. I think even as you grow up, still trying to differentiate between self-care and selfishness, even though I think we all kind of know in the back of our minds that you taking the time to like care for yourself shouldn't be seen as selfish.
Yeah. How do you feel about this, Catherine? Because then, like for us, we've had like experiences in nursing school now as like juniors, and I really don't want to like scare you or anything.
Oh no, yeah, this is not to scare you at all, by the way.
It's just like some of the things that we've experienced, and just I just want to set some expectations, and I just want to hear what you feel about it or how you feel about it.
For me, like I'm always like even my first clinical day, because our sophomore one clinical is 6 hours straight, right? So my first clinical day, I was so tired right after, and all my mom wanted was like to know, do you want to eat anything? If you want to eat anything, I'll make it for you. As a mom does. But I was just so tired and so grumpy. I was like, Mom, I don't really want to eat anything. I just want to go to sleep. And my mom was like, are you sure? I'll make anything that you want. Is there anything you want to eat? Because my mom is the type to like keep asking. Then I was like, I don't know. At that point, I was just so tired. I was like, Mom, I just want to go to sleep. And so I literally just left and I went to go to sleep. And then like I felt really bad about it afterwards, and I apologized to my mom. But it's just like, one of those days where it's like, it's been a long day, and like for me, waking up on those days, it's just like, it's not.
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. Especially in like the 7 a.m. ones. Oh, those are rough.
Yes, I had morning clinical. Even worse on the days when I had to. So that was just like my first time doing the 6 hour thing, and that was at home. My first one was at home during Zoom. But the first time I went to in-person clinical, so see, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Like that's not even comparable to my other friend who leaves at like 3:30 in the morning to drive to San Francisco for clinical.
That's right.
So I woke up.
Respect.
Yeah. So I woke up at 4:30, and by the time I get back, it's like 2:00. No rest in between. And then I'm just like, I come home, my mom's like, do you want to eat anything? It's the same thing. Do you want to eat anything? I'm like, no. I'm super tired. I just want to go upstairs. I just want to go to sleep. My mom keeps asking me, and I'm like, no, I'm tired. I don't want to do anything. And like, I feel really bad because my mom like already made all this food for me because she knows I'm coming home at 2. And I'm just like, no, I don't want anything. I just want to go to sleep. So in that aspect, I think kind of selfish with the way that I act, but I know that I'm super tired and like it's been a really long day, and like I really just need to sleep, because otherwise, one, I'll just be super grumpy for the rest of the day if I don't sleep. Two, I won't be doing anything. Three, I would just literally just be an unpleasant person.
Yeah.
That's good that you acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really do think self-care is important. And I've also seen a lot of posts on Instagram, because I follow a lot of nursing accounts. I think they're really funny. But not all of them, but like one post I saw was like, don't be afraid to, and there was like a list of bullet points like, take care of yourself, give self-care for yourself. Like, don't mistake it as selfishness. Don't think that it's selfishness, because you are just looking out for yourself and also looking out for like your future patients. Like, how can you take care of your friends, family, patients if you don't take care of yourself first? Because you're just giving so much of yourself. Eventually, if you don't give anything back to yourself, then there's nothing left for you to give other people, to take care of other people. So, yeah.
And then you're going to just burn out, and,
Yeah.
which is sadly very common in nursing, especially nursing students,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have you had any experiences like that yet, Catherine, of like completely burning out? Because I feel like burning out is like something that's the phrase is thrown out there a lot, but I think nursing students do know, like, when you hit burnout, like, you absolutely know it's not just like, oh, I'm just burning out, I'm just a little tired today. It's like, no, I'm done. Like, I'm burned out. Do you have any experiences like that yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think it was probably my 7th, 8th week of clinical. My clinical instructor does like morning check-ins and stuff like that. And then I outright said, I think I'm hitting burnout now. Like, I was at the beginning stages of burnout, and I was like I legit had, for patho this semester, we have patho quiz every other week.
Shit.
And then there's like fundamentals thrown in somewhere, and then pharmacology thrown in somewhere. So sometimes you have like three exams a week. Sometimes you have 2. And like for me, for my block, I have one right after the other. This one week I had pharmacology and pathophysio the same week. And I was like, and I also had in-person clinical that week. So I was like, all right, Monday, not really anything. Yeah. And then Tuesday 4:30, come back at 2. I didn't know I'm not going to really do anything until 8. Wednesday, funds is a super long class, right? And then I had another class right after, so that was like a 6-hour day straight, no break. And then Thursday was pharm exam already, and I was like, this is not it. And then I literally had to cram patho all in one day. I didn't study at all because of everything that I've had earlier in the week. I literally crammed patho one day, and I was like, I'm dead. Like, I cannot do anything. After my patho exam, like, I didn't fail it, but it was not my best grade, right? And so for like that weekend, I was like, I did not do anything. I could not do anything. I had no motivation. I still had stuff to do. I had a patient care plan to do.
Yes, let's go.
Tuesday clinical. I obviously did it Monday. So,
that's okay. Hey, you did it. It's all good.
Yeah. So it was just kind of like, that's when I really hit burnout, like the 7th week. And then we don't really have midterms. So it was just like, but then that's when my professor started talking about, all right, finals are in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And I'm like,
huh?
Bruh.
Say what?
What? What are you talking about? And they're still lecturing the material, of course. And I'm just like, I have not touched a single thing. And then that's when I really hit burnout, when it's like I didn't really do anything. Like for MSNS, I didn't really do anything because this was already after the first general meeting. So I didn't really have any specific responsibilities, due date, timelines I had to do. So MSNS was like, all right, I'm done. And then for NSA, I was like, oh crap. Still have to do crap for NSA. Oops, not crap for NSA. I still have to do things for NSA. So like it was like every week, check email, reply email, get things sorted out, talk to other e-board members, ship things out, get addresses and stuff like that. So I was just like, Brett, I have so much on my plate right now. I don't know. So I think how I deal with it was just kind of like checklisting. Checklisting is really the only way for me to get through stuff. Because it just, for me, it feels so good to just put a check mark or like strike a line through something on my list. And like sometimes to make myself feel better, like I will just, like every tiny single little thing, it was like check email. It's like there's a bullet point for like check email, even if something's small. It just feels good to see the list at the end of the day. Like, look at all the things you did good, you got all the things you needed to do done today, and it's like pat on the back.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, I feel like us saying all this, like to whoever's listening, like Alan said before, this isn't meant to scare you guys into, for any of the freshmen or sophomores that are watching at all. Because I think this stuff needs to be said. This is a part of nursing. I think it's, even though there's going to be a lot of lows, there's going to be a lot of sad times and struggles, I think those are what help you kind of acknowledge and realize the highs in your life, the beautiful things in nursing. Because, yeah, I kind of think of it as, you're always at this constant baseline, and you're never going to realize what's above the baseline if you don't go below it. And if you're always constantly, happy or just like on a high, then that becomes your new baseline, and you're really never gonna go up from there. And and I think it's just, but yeah, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Apologies.
I think I can just finish your thought. It's a lot of checks and balances. Like there's bound to be days where, like what Catherine was saying, you have one quiz here, you have a test there, you have a patient care sheet that's due like in 6 hours, and you have clinicals 2 days from now. Like how are you gonna get through this? But in my own experience, and I think the others can also agree with me, is just that you get through it 100%. You just find a way to get everything done in a timely manner, and everything done in a way where you're happy with it. And at the end of the day, you're going to be happy that you went through this struggle, this hardship, because ultimately it's going to build you as a person. It's going to build you as a nurse.
Yeah. And remember why you're doing it. I think that's the most important thing, because especially sophomore one, I think there's a lot of time, especially in clinical, when you're just standing around or walking around because there might not be stuff to do and you might feel like you're wasting your time. But I think the most important thing to do is stay grounded and remember why you're there, especially and it's for the patients. I think that's the most beautiful thing about being in the geriatric setting your sophomore one, because I think when you're not busy with all the medication administrations, charting, all those procedures, you get more time with your patients. And I think that's something they need the most, because they're there for long-term, for hospice. So for them, we're not focusing on like, reversing their disease, reversing the disorder. We're focused on their quality of life.
Yeah, and it's all about the human part of nursing at that point.
Yeah. Because I remember, this is also like a quote that I live by that was like from Robin Williams, that is from a movie that I can't remember, but it's like, if you focus on treating the disease or disorder, you're gonna win. There's a winning or a losing. But if you treat the whole person, then you're gonna win no matter what. Because when you're treating the whole person, you're focusing on their quality of life, and that's something that I just always want to stand by. That I never want to be the person that just fixes something, fixes that. I want to make sure that I'm giving actual care that will have a lasting impact on not just myself, but to the person I'm actually caring for.
Yeah, most definitely.
So inspirational, Ryan.
Oh gosh. Thanks. Gee, thanks.
Every time I start my clinicals, I want you to be there to give me a pep talk.
Oh my god, this took a long way. It was a long journey to get to this place, because I was not like this sophomore one, I'll be honest.
Like you learn a lot of things along the way. Like every day you go into clinicals, you have to have that mindset. I think when I was doing my geriatrics rotations, I think the first few weeks I was dreading it, because I didn't know what I was doing there. And a lot of the times I was like what Ryan was saying, like just standing around, not understanding what I was going to do, because at the beginning, you don't really get your skills check off like that yet. You really just do like a head to toe, or like you learn how to do a blood pressure cuff. And the other times you're just standing around, just watching the nurses do what they do. You're like, damn, when am I going to be like that? But then you find out after you slowly start talking to like the CNAs, and you talk to like the RNs, but then you slowly get to know your patient. And I think that's the thing that really made me want to, like, inspired me to even go further in my nursing career, because it's just the humanistic part of everything. Because once you start talking to your patients, once you get to know them, you build a connection, and you want to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was like one of the things that made me start looking forward to clinicals, is that I understand that these people are looking out for me to help them get better, mm-hmm. and I want to be there for them, right? And that really helped with my confidence and with my motivation, especially going to clinicals. And I do look forward to going to clinicals now more than ever. Like I'm always super down to wake up early for my clinicals. Like this past semester with my psychiatric rotations, we had to get to SF General super early at like 6:30. So I would wake up at like 5, even though I live so close to it, just to get ready and like mentally prepare myself and just tell myself that, oh, okay, I'm looking forward to this. I'm ready. Like I'm ready for whatever's going to be thrown at me today. And I'm going to have the best time that I can in this clinical. And I think that's like a good mental exercise that everyone should do right before the clinicals. And like, just to have like what Catherine was saying, like a little checklist that you can check off and you feel good about it. And then once you get there, like, yeah, I can 100% do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good advice. And also, yeah, same thing, set goals for when you're at clinical, because I feel like that's gonna happen. You're gonna just sit around and do nothing a lot of times. So I think if you have goals coming into clinical, then it just gives you that much more motivation and those more objectives to just complete, check off, and feel like you've done a lot and gotten the most out of your clinical experience. That's something that I think Al and I always advocate. Like, just always get the most out of your clinical experience, because once you're done with that semester, you're done. Of course, you have the rest of your life to do nursing, but you might not get that chance in that specific specialty to do that ever again.
Yeah.
So and speaking of clinical, Catherine, how are you feeling about going to sophomore 2? Not just clinical, but just like sophomore 2 in general.
Sophomore 2, I'm pretty nervous. I mean, like, path of this semester was already super hard. I don't know how next semester will be, honestly. And then there's fundamentals too, and then there's nutrition next semester. I'm just like, I'm not gonna think about it. Yeah. Not yet. I just finished finals yesterday, 2 days ago. So I'm not gonna think about it yet. But I'm really scared for med-surg too, because I don't know if I will get clinical. Mm-hmm. Like even sophomore 1, it was like not guaranteed clinical, and I got clinical. But for this med-surg 2, I talked to a lot of seniors that graduated, because that was the majority of MSNS board last year. So I got close to a lot of them. And so I talked to them, and then they were like, don't worry about it if you don't get sophomore 1 clinicals, because it's like geriatrics, and there's more opportunities for you to like practice those skills, which I agree with. Like, looking in hindsight now that I finished sophomore 1, I do agree with that. But sophomore 2, I'm like super scared that I won't get in-person clinical, because that's what all of them said was like the more important clinical between geriatrics and like med-surg 1. So I'm super scared that I won't get clinical, because I really do want clinical. And like everyone I've been talking to is like they learned a lot of their skills in med-surg 1. So I am really scared for that. But honestly, it's just up to the hospitals, whether they're like, oh, taking us in. We don't know if the Kaisers are taking us in really. And Professor Kwong, who's in charge of sophomore 2, junior 1, junior 2, I believe she is, she's been like trying super hard to get us into like a lot of clinical sites, which I think thankfully Dr. Kwong's working super hard. But yeah, I think that's the only thing I'm really scared about at this moment, was not getting mid-surg too clinical.
Yeah, I feel like Al and I have the same thing about junior 2. It's like the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's gonna be okay no matter what. Like whether or not we're gonna be in person, we're still gonna have skills. We're gonna have sim. We're gonna have each other to kind of continue going. Yeah, but yeah, I do agree that it's definitely a rough time because both Al and I can test that, like assure you that, having that, psychomotor component to nursing is so important because, we learn all these things. We pack our brains with so much knowledge during lectures that we need a place to actually practice it, outward in the world. And I think it's just it's going to be very difficult to not have that, or potentially not have that next semester. Because like it definitely helps with the HESI, definitely helps with all your tests. And like, hey, sometimes I'm gonna forget something that was in my brain that I saw on a slide. But if you kind of lived it, if you kind of done it outward to a patient, then it's gonna help you remember that much more.
I can attest to that. Literally on my last final, I was like, I for sure did not learn this in class, but I did it.
Yes,
But
love it. We love
it. We did it to a patient.
Mm-hmm.
So
love to see it.
Like, that's not a fair question, but I know the answer.
And like, as just like a closing thing, Catherine, do you have any advice for, the freshmen and for your sophomores as well, just like how they can like get through this pandemic and still kind of have that college experience, as an underclassman?
Yeah, well, I think for college experience, I think that's pretty much done now because fall semester is recruiting season. I'm pretty sure some organizations are doing spring recruitment too, like us. But I think really important thing to remember is just have a support group. Like a support group is like super important during this pandemic and also like online schooling, because you have to keep yourself sane somehow, like be it like picking up a new hobby, going to these online events that like so many organizations are hosting. Like our club, our org has been so good. Jordan and Jocelyn and Joseph and Ed have just been like really out there, just like making so many events for us each month. It's like, and also Katie, oh my gosh, I cannot thank Katie enough for like being so on top of like making Insta posts for these events. And like there's also a lot of behind the scenes work going on too. And I'm just so proud of our org. Sorry. Going back to advice. So having a really good support group is really important. Also, just like we talked about earlier, just taking time for yourself to like recover from everything that you're doing. Like it's hard work, like online schooling because you're alone, and then your classes are also pretty hard, and then for like underclassmen taking microbiome next semester, like, yeah, it's hard, but honestly, you'll get through it. Like, for sure, micro will be your hardest class. Like, for a really long time, micro will be your hardest class. So, like, just thinking to yourself, once you get through it, you're like, I'm good, Also, just like, I don't know, like even if you're scared to like go to these online events, like I say, just go meet new people. Don't be afraid to reach out to upperclassmen like us, because all of us are just super open to like just talking to you about anything you really want to know about, and we'll be real with you. Like we're not trying to like hype things up
Or
or
like,
anything.
I'm not gonna fluff anything up for the other
Yeah, like
class.
we're not gonna fluff. It's like we'll tell you for what it is, like, so yeah, just don't be scared to like reach out and like go to all these events. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for watching. I like to give a shout out to anybody who's watched the whole thing. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Yeah. Alan, do you have any last words or anything?
No, man. I just wanted to say that, Catherine, I appreciate your time with us, and I appreciate all your insight, and it's been really nice to talk to you. And yeah, I hope everyone had a good time watching it, and props to you for getting it this far.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Deuces.